Welcome back, beautiful people. I hope that you're doing well. I'm Dr. Leah Hollon. It's great to be with you today. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how trauma can actually get imprinted, and stick around, however, because we're going to talk about something called the 3-hit theory, and that's how it can actually take place. So we'll be saving that to the end, but I want to talk to you guys a little bit about epigenetics. I have a little bit already, but this idea of epigenetics is that the genes don't just rule the day, right? It's that the environment is just as important. So for example, if you're eating the wrong things, or if you're thinking the wrong thoughts, or that there's some negativity there, it definitely affects even the biochemistry that our body actually is producing. So it's just something for us to think about, right? Well, some of this research came about because we were looking at these specific mice, and we realized that they were like genetically the same, but if we fed them kind of junk food, rough food, and then we also added in food that had like other nutrients in it that was more nutrient dense, like B12 and folate, that actually these two mice, one of them that got the junk food or the yucky food, actually was obese and had a different coat color, whereas the other one was leaner and actually had a different coat color. And so what we realized very quickly was that our environment makes a big difference. So it's not just, again, the genes ruling the day. So our environment is just as important. And it's not just about what we eat, but it's also our exercise, of course. And it's also about the things that we think. And so we have seen research, and some really prominent researchers are doing this research right now and have come out with some beautiful studies, that our thoughts make a big difference on even gene expression. And so if you can actually, if you have an emotion of negativity or anger or resentment or shame or discouragement, that signals certain genes to act in a certain way. Whereas if you have more emotions of gratitude or joy or feeling elated or just love, right? That actually signals the genes to work differently. So you have control over what's going on for your body. And so I think this is really important for people who have diseases or chronic diseases, and they want to know what all they can do. It's not just about taking a pill. We realize that, for a lot of medication, some people can't do that. And we're going to talk about that. That's called pharmacogenomics, where some people with their genes may not actually respond favorably to the drug. So we're going to come back to that in another actual session. But what I wanted to share a little bit was, again, something called the 3-hit concept. So it's in the background. So for people to actually have a disease manifest, and it could be even from trauma, right? So we know that, again, if the environment causes a trauma, and that could be a physical trauma, that could change the gene expression for some people. Even viruses can do that. We know that. And so I wanted to kind of share with you guys about how we might be able to make a difference with this whole 3-hit concept. So the idea is, in the background, hit 1 would be that there's a vulnerability in the family. That, let's say, for instance, you have a genetic predisposition, but just because, and you've heard me say this again from one of my beautiful colleagues out there, that just because you were dealt a bad hand doesn't mean you're going to lose the game. Again, that's why epigenetics is so important. So you might have a vulnerability in the background, and it's not actually expressing. So again, you might have gotten what we call a mutation, or a single nucleotide polymorphism, which is a mutation. So you got a different protein than you should have had. And that happens pretty often, actually, every 300 proteins. But they're not usually catastrophic. Some can be, but most are not. So anyway, back to this whole concept of the 3-hit concept, is there's a vulnerability in the background. And then what happens is that in their life, early on, a person may have some really hardships. So that's like the adverse childhood experiences that we talked about. So that would be hit number 2. And then hit number 3 is like the final straw, or the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's where basically the body says, oh no, I can't handle this injury or this trauma. And then that's when disease starts to set up. So within my book, I talk about this 3-hit concept. or this three-hit theory concept, where basically it's that vulnerability, and then there's something early in someone's life that's really a hardship, and then there's, as an adult, there's something that actually is kind of catastrophic, and then that can actually be a trauma, that could be PTSD, and that's where then the genetic code starts expressing, right? So then we might have a disease of depression or anxiety or sleep disturbances or autoimmune disease or even cancer. And so what we have to do is, it's not just about taking a pill, as I said earlier, but there's, three main things that we think about as providers out there, is that it's not just physically an issue, right, or chemically an issue, but also the emotional body is a big part of that. And that's why, again, we're going to talk about something called post-traumatic growth, and that's where people actually can transcend that old trauma, and that actually the gene expression can change again, so that you're healing. So anyway, I wanted to share, a lot of people have questions as to, well, I wasn't having these issues until this major event happened, and they might have had things in the background, and then it actually started expressing because that trauma occurred, and so then that biology changes, sort of like the mice. So again, we're not maybe eating the bad food, but actually we're living in that trauma state still, and so it's like the looping behaviors, the ruminating behaviors, where basically we can't get out of that rut. And so we can't just think about it from a biochemical standpoint of, giving a drug or those kinds of things. We have to do more work and work on the emotional body as well. So anyway, I hope this was interesting for you guys related to epigenetics, but more specifically related to the three-hit theory. So check out any links below. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if there's any concept or any questions specifically related to the book that you would like to have answered, we're happy to try to put that out for you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.